Well, he knew more about me than I know more about him. He probably spoke to my brother, who gave him all the dirt. But anyway, I must say, it is truly an honor for me to be here tonight. I hate to tell you how many years it's been since I was last here. About 45 or 50 years ago, when we used to play basketball upstairs. And now I can see that some of the graduates are a lot taller than we were, so they probably can beat us now, but those are very, very good years. Reverend Fathers, members of the board, faculty, members of the Archdiocese that are here, graduates, congratulations, parents, for all you've done, and for all guests that are here, thank you for inviting me. I would like to share my story, because my story is your story. It's the story of thousands of first and second generation Greek Americans. It's about the same sacrifices, hard work, dreams, and aspirations of our parents. It is about the journey of their offspring that have contributed greatly to the American landscape and society at large. It is your story, one that has yet to be fully developed, but full of hope and promise. My father, who was a great man, came to this country before the Depression, leaving home in then southern Albania, what we call Voioripios, with a second-grade education. At the age of 12, going to the coal mines in France, to work in the coal mines in France at the age of 12. He arrived there with only the shirt on his back, without any shoes. He frequently would tell me he had nothing to wear, enduring unbelievable hardship to help support his family back home. Imagine working in a coal mine at the age of 12. I can't fathom how gripping that experience must have been for him. So much so that in his last days on this earth, semi-comatose, he was hallucinating in the French language, probably reliving that ordeal. Ultimately, he decided to emigrate to the United States, the great land of hope and opportunity. He was still a very young man, without any knowledge of the English language, without friends or family to greet and accept him, solitary and alone, making his way to Ellis Island, whereupon his last name, Tenetis, became Tennant. So, εμείς δεν αμερικανοποίησαμε το όνομα, το κάνουμε στο Ellis Island. Ultimately, he ended up on the Lower East Side, enduring prejudice, economic hardship, and unspeakable challenges. He started working as a dishwasher, eventually opening up a coffee shop, and ultimately a diner in Little Neck, Queens. My mother left her family in southern Albania from the town of Himara in Voioripios during a period of violent civil strife and unrest, escaping in a British submarine with her sister-in-law and 2 children. You see, my mother's brother was assassinated by leftists. He was the regent's physician, killed in cold blood on his way to making a house call. Her other brother was poisoned, her father dying shortly thereafter from undoubtedly his profound grief. My mother spent 2 years in a refugee camp in Bari, Italy, ultimately making her way back to Greece through some kind relatives, only to relive another tragedy, which was the Katorki in Greece. Eventually, making it back, or meeting my father, who at the time was working here in this country, and through an uncle of my mother's that was living here, that had a little proxenio, my father went to Greece, met my mother, married her. He eventually came back, and my mother eventually came to this country when she was 8 months pregnant to my brother and I. Both my brother and I were profoundly affected by our parents' arduous journey. My uncle's untimely assassination literally served as an inspiration for me to follow in his footsteps as a physician. I can vividly remember going back to Greece as a child, a young man, and being introduced as the nephew of the doctor, or Anixos του γιατρού, and how compassionate he was, and how healing he was, and how people spoke of him. I have no doubt that my father's enduring courage was an inspiration to my brother in ascending to the highest levels of government. During his most difficult moments, and he had some very difficult moments, he would always qualify his remarks to me by saying that as bad as his day was, they still weren't as bad as the bad days Dad had. We grew up speaking Greek as a first language, ultimately learning English while attending public school. We saw that the other kids in the neighborhood were speaking English at homes, and that was kind of a surprise to us. Father Constantine Volaitis, in blessed memory, the first parish priest of St. Nicholas of Flushing, one day came to my father's diner, and he said, "John, it's time for the boys to come as older boys. Time to serve in the altar." We were 12 years old at that time. 12 years old, that's when my father was working in a coal mine, and we were going to be altar boys. And I can't tell you what an experience that was for us. We didn't have a car. My father didn't drive. Nobody in my family drove. So every Sunday, George and I would get on the bus and go to church and serve in the altar. And I can tell you that for us, that was a transforming experience, developing an intimate relationship with our Greek Orthodox faith. Our priest was not only our spiritual father, but our guiding light. I can tell you that we would not be where we were today if it wasn't for Father Volaitis in the church. This odyssey is not unique to me. It is part of the fabric of us all. The circumstances and characters may be different, but the struggles are the same. My parents, your parents, were and are self-reliant, emotionally tough, yet motivated by love and tenderness. A love and tenderness that was inherited from our Greek philokimon, an ethic of care and compassion that was restored to all of us by our great Orthodox faith. And that has been imparted to all of you by the wonderful work and education that occurs here at St. Demetrius. And from the ancient Greeks, we have all been given a certain style of character to be courageous and unflinching in the face of the worst the world will throw out of us. Struggle has always been part of the Greek experience. Certainly modern events tell us that today. Struggle has always been part of our experience. Your parents struggled. My parents struggled. I struggled. You will struggle. But remember, unremarkable lives avoid struggle. A well-lived life involves throwing oneself into struggle. Large parts of the most worthy lives test moral courage and face opposition and ridicule, and those who pursue struggle end up being much happier than those who pursue pleasure. As you prepare to enter college, I would like to refer to you to the American Freshman Survey, which your principal may be familiar with. This was a survey that's been followed by students since 1966. It asks entering freshmen objectives considered to be essential or very important. In 1967, 86% of respondents checked developing a meaningful philosophy of life, more than double who said being very well off financially. Since then, finding meaning and making money have traded places. The first has plummeted to 45%, the second has soared to 82%. I urge you, graduates, to separate yourselves solely from the temptation of investment skills and knowledge that would only increase future earnings. Unfortunately, there has been a distortion in our modern society of higher education's purpose and potential. I personally struggled with this sitting on the board of Adelphi University. College is your singular opportunity to rummage through and luxuriate in ideas, to realize how very large the world is and to contemplate your desired place in it. When college is more about career than ideas, when paycheck matters more than wisdom, we are doomed as a society. If all you speak is money without values, you will be bankrupt. I am therefore asking all of you to espouse the primary idea of Hellenism, spontaneity of consciousness. That is to say, see things as they really are and explore the excellence and good in the world. The Hellenic spirit is a spirit of flexibility, seeing things as they are, and by seeing them as they are, to see them in their real beauty. This is the simple and attractive ideal which Hellenism holds out before human nature. Lastly, I ask the graduates not to so much to think about choosing a career, but choosing a vocation. A vocation is not a career. A person choosing a career looks for job opportunities and room for advancement. He looks for something that will provide financial and psychological benefits. A person does not choose a vocation. A vocation is a calling. Look at the people in this room. Look at the dedicated teachers. Look at the clergy. Look at the successful business people. Theirs is a vocation. Sometimes we are called to this by indignation, or a Bible verse, or a literary passage. Albert Schweitzer, whom I'm sure you've read about, some time ago, he came upon a biblical passage, and the biblical passage was, "Whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall save it." He knew at that point he was called to give up his very successful career as a musical scholar and go into medicine to become a jungle doctor. A vocation is not about fulfilling your desires or wants. It's not about the pursuit of happiness or the avoidance of struggles or pain. It is not necessarily found by looking within and finding a passion. It is found by looking outside of ourselves and unselfishly asking what life is asking of us. Finally, I just finished reading a wonderful book, and I really would recommend this to some of your senior students. It's been a national bestseller. It's on the New York Times bestseller list, and it's written by David Brooks. And my wife and I had actually the privilege of having seen him introduce the book. And the book is called The Road to Character. At the end of the book, he includes a humility code, which he described as a coherent image of how to live. He mentions several propositions that form this code, and for brevity's sake, I'm only going to mention two. And I quote, "Humility is the greatest virtue. It is an accurate assessment of your own place in the world. It is an awareness that individual talents alone are inadequate to the tasks that are assigned to you. Humility reminds you that you are not the center of the universe, but serve a larger order. Pride, however, is the central vice. It blinds us to our own weaknesses and misleads us into thinking we are better than we are. It makes us more certain and closed-minded than we should be. It deludes us into thinking that we are the authors of our own lives. And let's face it, we as Greeks sometimes succumb to this. Because the reality really is that no person can achieve self-mastery on his or her own. Everybody needs redemptive assistance from God, family, friends, ancestors, traditions, and institutions. How fortunate are we to have the assistance of our Greek Orthodox faith, our supportive, loving families, and the enduring Hellenic traditions, all encompassed in this wonderful institution called St. Demetrius. We are ultimately saved by grace. In our weakness and most vulnerable moments, grace floods in. It may come in the form of love from friends and family, from an unexplained stranger, from a teacher or clergyman, but ultimately from God. Christ brings us the humility, love, and uplifting our soul in our darkest moments. We have all witnessed this grace. I have witnessed this grace. We will all continue to depend on it. We are ultimately embraced, and then gratitude fills the soul. My parents, in their struggles, were embraced, and were forever grateful for their traditions, their church, and ultimately this wonderful beacon of hope and opportunity called America. You have been embraced by this wonderful Greek Orthodox community that will always be your platform. My prayer for you all is that gratitude will fill your souls, because Lord knows it has filled mine, and with it, the desire to serve and give back. Δεν ξέρω αν ο κύριος Ανδριώτης θα μου επιτρέψει 2 λεπτά ακόμα, αλλά θα ήθελα να πω και 2 λόγια στα ελληνικά. Πρώτον, ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω όλους. Για μένα είναι μια ιδιαίτερη στιγμή που είμαι εδώ. Είμαι πάρα πολύ περήφανος για όσα έχετε κατορθώσει. Θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω τους γονείς που με τη θυσία τους, με την εργασία τους, με την αγάπη τους δημιουργήσαν αυτά τα παιδιά. Τα θεμέλια είναι σταθερά. Μην ανησυχείτε. Μιλήσαμε στα ελληνικά, μιλήσαμε για ταπεινοφροσύνη και νομίζω αυτό είναι ένα από τα μεγάλα πράγματα της ζωής μας. Μιλήσαμε και για την περηφάνεια, πως η περηφάνεια καμία φορά δεν είναι και τόσο καλό, και μιλήσαμε και για το ρόλο της Ορθοδοξίας στη ζωή μας και στη ζωή μου. Θα ήθελα να σας διαβάσω κάτι για την Ορθοδοξία τη σημερινή, διότι στη σημερινή εποχή μάλιστα καλείται η Ορθοδοξία να αποβεί και πάλι παράγοντας ενότητας των Ελλήνων μεταξύ τους και με τους άλλους λαούς, φορέας ειρήνης και συμπηλήσεως. Καλείται να βοηθήσει στο ξεπέρασμα της κρίσης του καιρού μας, που δεν είναι τόσο οικονομική ή πολιτική, αλλά ηθική και πνευματική. Κρίση θεσμών και αξιών. Καλείται να θωρακίσει πνευματικά των λαών μας, διδάσκοντάς του τον ορθό δρόμο του προσανατολισμού, την αρετή και το ήθος. Και είναι σε θέση η Ορθοδοξία να προσφέρει όλα αυτά, διότι η Ορθοδοξία ήταν και είναι η φωνή των Αποστόλων και των Πατέρων, η μία Άγια Καθολική και Αποστολική Εκκλησία με ανανεωτικές δυνάμεις, με πλούσιο στοχασμό. Αυτά τα λόγια, φίλοι, που νομίζω παίζουν μεγάλο ρόλο στη σημερινή Ελλάδα και στη σημερινή ζωή μας, δεν είναι δικά μου. Αυτά τα λόγια ήσαν του αείμνηστου Αρχιεπισκόπου Ιακώβου το 1980. Νομίζω πρέπει να τα θυμηθούμε πάνω σε αυτά τα λόγια. Λοιπόν, σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ και σας ευχαριστώ.